Hey everybody, I ended up just getting my Musket and Tomahawks Nick starter in the mail. I ended up getting the Nick starter through the North American distributor Brigade Games, which came fairly quickly once it did arrive in their hands, so I do commend them on that, and was packaged really well, and so I can't really complain about really anything in regards to that. And so I ended up getting a level 2, so I didn't really get miniatures, but I did get miniatures for the stretch goals as being part of the Kickstarter, and I'm not really going to focus too much of my review today on the miniatures. It's mainly just going to be in the books, and I'll talk about it in a moment here, but I will just say really quickly that the miniatures are really nice. They're not the style miniature that I pretty much use now. I'm more into the Minden and Krantera style for miniature, but these are beautiful. And in some ways they're comparable. They look at first glance as comparable and to my Conquest ones that I got through Warlord Games for French Indian War. So they're really nice, actually. I like some of them quite a bit. And so what I'm going to do today is I've already done reviews early on the rules when being sent by StudioTomahawk, the PDFs. But this is my first glance at the materials themselves. And I'm going to try to give sort of an unbiased, objective review of these materials as compared to SAGA, which is also made by StudioTomahawk recently. So both rule books and army sort of book supplements and tokens or cards, wherever I have comparable things, as well as sort of a contemporary rule set, which would be Sharp Practice 2, which also provides cards and tokens and a book and things like that. And so there's been a lot of talk on Facebook just about the release and just about what people have gotten and things like that. And I just wanted to give my sort of look at these things and just comparing to my reference point. Now, one thing I will say is that I'm not looking at this from a dollar-to-dollar perspective. And that's actually very important as well. I'm not saying it isn't. All of these, to me, fall within a range, particularly the stuff that's actually by StudioTomahawk is going to be comparable between SAGA and Muskets and Tomahawks to some degree. And then as well, Sharp Practice. I ended up winning a contest on YouTube and getting a huge amount of Sharp Practice stuff for free, which was great. But, and that was actually with just somebody I subscribed to. It wasn't even by the company. But, and seeing the prices for it, I knew I got a certain dollar value for gaming, and I chose to use Sharp Practice, and that stuff, to me, cost fairly similar when that was released to this. Like, it's I'm not looking at a dollar-to-dollar, but it was a similar sort of purchase, so I don't think one was vastly more than the other. They both actually are pricey rule sets. They're pricey packages of things to play the game. However, as you all know, I love these games, and so I'm not actually going to complain about price in this case. So, all right, well, I'm going to come back and I'm going to look at each one of these things. I'm going to look at the rule book, I'm going to look at the army supplement, the cards, and the tokens, and in that order, and compare them. Right, so first we have the Musket and Tomahawks rulebook. Looks like at first glance a really nice hardbound book, similar to what I would expect in being a fan of Musket and Tomahawk, or excuse me, StudioTomahawk's SAGA materials. Looks really good actually. Looking through here, it just seems to be bound very much the same way. And all I can really say about this, because I've reviewed the content, it just from the material itself, is that overall it's kind of what I've always wanted for a Musket and Tomahawks rulebook. I've wanted a hardback book like this, has the nice new smell of the rulebook, and I have no complaints. It's just a nice hardbound. Now, of course, compared to the first edition, compared to some games, like it doesn't have the army lists in here. We've talked about why they've decided to do that with this. So that is a difference between the original Musket and Tomahawks. Original Musket and Tomahawks, of course, right here, softbound. This actually I've used this so much, and it's worn in the middle to where the staples are coming out, like the page is just coming out of the middle binding. I think I still have more time with this if I wanted to keep using it, but it's worn pretty well given the lack of quality compared to the new one. But this is kind of what I've always wanted. This really looks great to me. I love it. And so comparing this to other rule books, I would look at It's kind of strange in some ways because SAGA, in some ways, in the design of the quality, has went reverse, or they've went reverse, in that in SAGA, the rulebook is a softbound that's much lighter to then have more of the content in the sort of universe supplements. Where this is a bit different with Musket and Tomahawk is it's opposite. There's a higher quality book that's much more robust in content and design and quality to then have sort of an army list book or period book that is lesser in quality and thinner and much less content in that. So it's just where you put your main amount of rules is reversed. Having said that, and I think it's important to point this out, that the SAGA rulebook, I felt, for a soft cover, was really, I was really happy with this. I was really happy with the price, and I really felt, for like this book, I think it's 50 pages? Yeah, 50 pages. But I felt that the value here was quite a lot. I mean, what was put into this, considering the way it was done, and that, you know, less money was put into this, and then you were going to go to like a bound universe book, which we'll come up to next. And so cover is really nice on this. I felt this was really good. I had no problem with this. I enjoyed this. But clearly the Musket and Tomahawks one, they're apples to oranges between SAGA and Musket and Tomahawks. Now, sharp practice. This book for SAGA, I wrote for Musket and Tomahawks. I didn't really say how many pages it was, but it is like 77, 78, 79. It looks like close to 80 pages. The Sharp Practice book is close to 120 pages, so another 40 pages. So it's, and they also include like your scenarios and your army book, or your, you know, like your lists and things and your way to play the game all in one book. So that's a different philosophy, like in the way they designed it. Now, this kind of cover is similar to the SAGA in feel, the SAGA rulebook I just showed. It's sort of a tough sort of cover for a softbound, and it's bound really well. It's clearly not to the quality that the Musket and Tomahawks one is, but I've never had a problem with this. I still felt that it's actually a well-produced book, and I've found I was never disappointed with it, and I felt the same way around the SAGA soft cover. But I will have to say, you know, it's bigger. They didn't do the same system at all, but it's actually not a hardbound, which I really do like for my games that I really enjoy. And so what I would do is come back next now, and I'll just show the Army books and the difference. So here's the Army book, Redcoats and Tomahawks for Musket and Tomahawks, the first period sort of rule set. One of the things that a lot of people have complained about is just this sort of cover. It is almost comparable really to a magazine, you know, rather than like a book in the way it's produced. The interior seems somewhat reasonable, like in the same to me, as far as it doesn't feel like it's weighted like so much lighter that it's dramatically different. But, and this would end up being, it looks like 43 pages including the back cover, so I don't know, 32 pages, and back cover is similar to the front. I've already kind of, as I mentioned, talked about the content. Some folks online have had some concern about this, and I have to say that I can't totally disagree with that. I'm not really sure. I think this could get shredded, to be honest, pretty easily. I mean, you know, I'm pretty careful with my gaming stuff, so I don't imagine myself throwing this around, but anybody that tosses this with some stuff could easily shred this right off the cover. It's just, so it's actually bound with staples, sort of like the similar, sort of like the SAGA book as well in the original Musket and Tomahawks. But in some ways, the original Musket and Tomahawks, the rulebook itself, is much better in its stiffness for the cover as far as the quality. Looking at this, of course, the SAGA Universe books, and this is really, like I said, apples to oranges. Like the Universe book, more of the quality is put for SAGA. This would be comparable to the Musket and Tomahawks rulebook, but clearly this is a hardbound book, very nice. But then even if you were to compare the SAGA rulebook, which I think would be a fair comparison, they're actually really close in length. Like the pages for this is 48, so there's 8 more pages. That's not including the back cover. For this would be 42. If you actually look at the difference in thickness, it almost appears that the SAGA rulebook is over half as big, yet there's only an 8-page difference. So I think both the paper, well, it's probably a lot of it maybe in the cover itself. The cover is just so much better quality than this is. And so I do wish they would have, adopted, this level of quality for the SAGA rulebook, being the lesser of the two qualities within the SAGA, publications as far as the book construction is compared to this. That's just my only sort of observation. And so this was a bit of a dip, I think. Now, next would be the cards. One of the things that I noticed that many folks, or several folks, were making some comments on was just the quality of the cards. Now, with the original Muskets and Tomahawks, you actually got the cards with the book. That's, of course, all calculated into the price, but this time you ended up paying extra for them, and it was just set up differently as the way you purchased them. And so I'm going to compare the original cards to the new cards, to the SAGA cards, to the Sharp Practice cards, just to see, in my opinion, looking at them side by side, what we're really looking at here. Now, I did notice that on mine at least, looking here, it might be hard to see. I'm actually trying to show the light on this, but there's actually indentations in both the corners and little points where, let's see if I can do a good job here there we go. That's what I want to show. I'm just showing that there's markings on my new cards, and you can see here how they're kind of roughed up a little bit right out of the cellophane. And so I wasn't that pleased with that. I don't know if that was just a top card that I grabbed. It's the morale card for the French, it looks like, but they don't all appear, the very corners on them appear to have, even on cards that don't have that, appear to be bending back slightly. And so I think that's kind of what some felt that even before playing, like these should really be sleeved. These may not end up really lasting too long. And if I just sort of randomly grab another card, I'm just looking to see if any of the other ones have indentations like that. I'm not seeing indentations in all of them, like those markings, but it may be that that was the top card. But I do definitely, and it might be that this was wear, like within even having the plastic around it, that edge. But when I actually, looks like there's some kinks in this one stretching it, but if I bend these at all, they do seem kind of flimsy as far as cards go. I mean, they definitely don't seem stiff like in any way. They're just easily bendable. Around the sides and the areas that are dark, they're losing. You can look at this right here. I just opened this package, and you can see the edge of the card there. It's kind of damaged already without having even used it yet. And so they're clearly not the greatest cards. They definitely will need to be sleeved, and that likely will just solve the problem. If you don't play hard with them, you don't start with them, then you're likely to sleeve them. That means that you will have to buy some sleeves, which will be more expensive than the cards were to begin with. But in most cases, like for some decent sleeves. But let's look and just, that's clear what they look like. Let's take a look at the original cards. Original cards, probably thinner, I'm thinking. These are more flimsy than the new ones. However, and these have actually lasted really well for me. I've never sleeved them. But what I will say is they're a nice glossy finish on the top, and they seem to be, this is not even the real card. This is actually just like an advertisement so that were on, that come as cards. But these are just as thin. But this glossy finish on them, they're made differently. They definitely seem as if they're a slightly different material. These are a bit more of a matte finish, and I think you could press into them a little easier. I'm not sure. But these were clearly not expensive cards either. I've had folks complain about these cards when buying them at first. The edges seem to be better than the new cards, even though I've played lots of games with them. They've held up better. So what does that mean? I'm not an expert on cards. I don't know. I think they're somewhat comparable to the new ones. I could argue that they might even be, in some respects for gaming, a little better. And those were the ones that, well, they weren't free, but they came with the game. What about the SAGA Age of Magic spell cards? So these are cards. They're not used for the same activation, same reason, but they're for Magic. These are Magic cards for SAGA. Now I looked at this. They're a different size, of course, but and these they're a bit glossy, but I find these to be tremendously stiffer as far as the card, and so I would say that the SAGA cards, in my view, were a better quality card. I've not sleeved these yet. These don't require as much interaction in shuffling, or you know, they're not shuffled really. They don't have to be, at least to play it in most ways that I've played it. You can just select your spells and put these down and use these for your characters. I think these are probably better quality card, made by, you know, offered by the same company. And then finally, Sharp Practice. So Sharp Practice have their cards. They're kind of used in a similar way. I have always sleeved these. I never played with them not sleeved. But I was just sort of looking at these, and I'll be quite honest, I looked at these before the video today just so I could kind of think about it and compare them. And I'll be quite honest, you can see some white around the edge here. I think these are comparable to the Sharp Practice cards. I don't really see people typically complaining about these cards. Now granted, Sharp Practice can also be played with tokens like these, and many people will, and they're, you know, you don't have to worry about them as far as their MDF tokens, that you just kind of throw them in a bag. But I've not really seen people complain about these cards, yet I don't really see, in all fairness to StudioTomahawk, really any better quality on these. And so, yeah, so those are my thoughts on the cards. Are they, you know, really great quality? No. Could they have been better? Yes. Are they better than, let's say, Sharp Practice, which is used in a similar way? Or I should say worse. Are they worse? No, I think they're comparable, actually. And then what about their own product for SAGA? Well, I think it's better, actually. Okay, so now on to the tokens. Okay, so I have the tokens here, this little flat, you know, and they've already started to pop out on their own here, which is fine. I know everybody has their different tastes on how the tokens look, and I'm not really going to talk about that. I don't really have a problem with the way that they look, and I think overall, I'd have to say that I think it's nice that they offer this as an option rather than having to make them on your own for people that don't want to do that. And so you do get quite a few tokens within the game, and they're actually double-sided, which is very cool. I'm just looking here. I haven't looked these over yet, but you know, it looks to me that it's French on one side and English on the other, and that's great. That's good. And so I thought this was a nice option. I mean, they're just cardboard tokens. I think Canadian-wise, I think these are running for like $10. Is that pricey? I don't know. I mean, honestly, what can you really get for less than $10? And they produce these things. And so the quality is what it is. They're cardboard tokens, all the ones that you probably need. And you can either buy them or you don't. I will say that in my experience for the first edition, the only option I had was to print them off. And I didn't start printing on cardstock at that time because it was a while ago. I was only using paper, so I just cut out these pieces of paper. This isn't much better as far as an option, so it's great that I think they offered an option for that. Now for SAGA, I'm not other than fatigue markers, which you can buy a flat like this for SAGA that has measuring sticks and fatigue markers and things, and I even think that is a good value. It's comparable to this. I've never bought it, but I've seen other people that have bought it, and I think that it's a nice offering. It's comparable to that, and you don't have to buy it. You don't need it necessarily to play. You can make them yourself. But I think it's pretty good. Now, my only other comparable is Sharp Practice, but they kind of went all out on their tokens, and they had, you know, when you bought tokens for Sharp Practice, they were beautiful sort of plastic cut and engraved markers. Like this one says uncontrolled. We've got, you can use these for shock. They're just plastic, and these are just sort of beautiful. This says present, and it's sort of in a nice green kind of marker there. And so there's not as many that are needed there, and I think most people that play Sharp Practice won't use these for shock because they will likely need dice or something to count much higher than the number that are provided in the token set. However, these ones that say uncontrolled and present are kind of nice to be able to use in the game. And so these are definitely of a higher quality. Probably, from what I remember, not much different in price. Even if somebody says that I paid double, like, you know, for this quality, like another $10, it's probably in my mind worth it. But at the end of the day, and they may not have even have been double, I'm not sure. At the end of the day, I don't really fault the price point and what you're getting with the cardboard tokens for this. I think it was still a nice offering to offer. So, all right, so what do I think overall? I think probably overall, the only real disappointment that I'm not disappointed in the Musket and Tomahawks release overall. That's the first thing I would say. Like, as an entire package, I think it's nice. I love the rulebook. I think the card sleeve will be absolutely fine. I think the tokens will be useful. I really like, as I've said already in one of my videos, I really do like the decision to go with the Army books the way they did. If I only had one just observation, that what could have been better is I would agree with those that just feel the quality of this book could have been better. That this could end up being damaged, and it may mean needing to a workaround for that somehow. And so beyond that, that would be my only criticism, I would say, of the release, as far as the physical release and the quality of the actual release and the presentation. Overall, like I said, looks great. I'm looking forward to playing games in the system, and I know a lot of people have already been putting their videos out there, and a lot of people have been putting their stuff up both on Facebook and YouTube, and I'm kind of enjoying watching it. And keep it up, everybody.